Hello, we are interviewing today Mr. George Hixenheiser. His birthday is September 2nd, 1923. He served in World War II medical branch. His highest rank achieved was PFC, Private First Class. The date is April 2nd, 2012. 21 South Fairlane Drive. My name is Griffin Yena. This is Chandler Krause and Luke Newmaster. And the interview is being conducted for the National U.S. Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress.
Okay, good.
Mr. George Hixenheiser was born on a farm in northern Myerstown, PA. He went to an 8th grade school in the country. From there, he went to the Myerstown School. He had several careers before entering World War II. He was in the fire police for many years, and he was the captain of fire police for a number of years. He was approached to be the justice of the peace, up his position in the fire police department. He was the judge of peace for 12 years after. He handled marriages and anything else along those lines. He belonged to the Rotary Club for 38 years and was president for...
I was quite busy. I belonged to the Myerstown Fire Police for years, and I was captain for a number of years. But then I was approached to be a justice of peace of the area, so I had to give up belonging to the fire police, and was justice of peace for 12 years. I had anything from marriages to anything along the whole line. Then after that, I belonged to the Rotary Club in Myerstown. I belonged to that for 38 years, and I was president of the Rotary Club. And I don't remember what year it was, and I was very active. And I went to Rotary International of Europe one time while I was president, and so I was quite active, and always helped my brothers and sisters. Always helped them had any need, and I have a big yard, and I'm always busy. Never no free time. In fact,
a majority of the time. Mr. George Hixenheiser enlisted into the Army service. After enlisting, he went down to Camp Claiborne, Louisiana for busy training. There he qualified for shooting. Later, officials came around to ask who would like to belong to the Mr. George Hixenheiser had volunteered, and he was placed in the 109th Military Medical Corps Company B. Captain Claiborne was his CEO. Training for a medic was not difficult, as Mr. Hixenheiser said. It was a lot of classroom work. As a medic, Mr. Hixenheiser was treated very nicely and had many friends. He did numerous jobs while he was there, aidmen and anything else they had assigned him. He drove an ambulance. As he did this, he transported people to a hospital from the battlefield, mostly as a medic. Mr. Hixenheiser mainly treated shrapnel wounds. Infections weren't as common. Another major event he had been assigned to was a patrol 3 miles into enemy territory. They started firing mortar shells at Mr. George Hixenheiser. 2 of his men were badly injured and another one killed. Killed was not so bad, said Mr. George. They lived in foxholes and slept in sleeping bags. The food came in moderately and everything was fairly decent. However, once battle started, and tensions rose. One time, Germans marched upon Mr. George Hixenheiser's location. They had almost taken over their position, which would have been bad because afterwards the encampment was a crucial standpoint. Mr. George Hixenheiser and the battalion fought them off. The most difficult part, being a medic, was going out on patrol with the GIs, for going deep off into the enemy territory was, as Mr. Hixenheiser says, pretty scary.
During the war, Mr. George had been injured. A piece of shrapnel flew into his foot. He had no time to treat it, given it was in the middle of a battle, so he continued to go out and treat others. Later, he took off his shoe, and it was filled with blood. They took him off to the hospital to treat him. After a week's treatment, Mr. George was up on his feet and back in service. This is how he earned his Purple Heart. George knew how to speak German, which helped him communicate with civilians. During the war, he had received orders to treat civilians with respect. He traveled through Germany, France, the Rhineland, and Britain. He went back to France, and from there he was transported overseas home. When he got home, he was treated with much respect and dignity. Upon his arrival, he got married to the same girlfriend he had before the war. He had been keeping in close contact with his family during the war through letters. He met his wife on a Saturday night walking around Richland, PA, with his friend. He saw three ladies sitting on a bench. They went over to meet them. One was a mother, and the other two were her daughters. Before he knew it, they were dating, and then steady, and then married. He had planned on having children with his wife, 3 of them, in fact. However, his wife had a difficult childbirth, and the first time that she had a difficult childbirth the first time, and they had decided not to have any more to save her the pain. She gave them 3 grandchildren since then. When he got back, he worked in the limestone quarry. He worked for 36 years before retiring, working under the same foreman the whole time. There he had done anything needed of him, as he did in the army as a medic. Towards his later years, however, he didn't work the heavy machinery. He never missed any work and always worked overtime. After his retirement, Mr. George Hixenheiser stayed at home with his wife, recently deceased 3 years ago. Mr. George has no regrets during his lifetime and takes much pride in his service. He advises young men to join the Army and spend time in the service. We thank him for the great effort he made to keep our freedom and the freedom of others safe. Thank you, Mr. George Hixenheiser.
What advice would you give to someone that was considering joining the Army?
What advice I give to him?
Yeah, what advice would you give to someone that was considering joining the Army or even a medical field in the Army?
Well, it's good experience, health-wise, medical-wise, and health-wise. It's very good for any GI, any guy, any young fellow to join up. I'd advise that, because right now there is no war except over there, just police work. So your odds of going into a battle are very rare. So they might as well join up and get their time in, then they're free the rest of their life.
All right, why don't you guys thank Mr. Hixenheiser for the interview?
Okay, thank you for the interview, Mr. Hixenheiser, and thank you for your service as a soldier fighting for our country and our freedom. We wholeheartedly thank you for what you've done for this country.
I was very glad to do it. I never regretted it.
Okay. We respect you very much for what you did. Thank you.
Thank you.